It was a sleepy town nestled deep within the heart of the woods. The inhabitants lived quiet lives, with their most significant concerns being the changing of seasons and the occasional wandering wild animal. But all that changed one autumn, when the whispers began. Rumors circulated of a creature that prowled the woods at night. It wasn't the wolves or the bears that the townfolks were used to. This was something far more sinister. Those who had claimed to seen it spoke of a tall, shadowy figure with unnaturally long fingers, which it used to tap and scratch on windows in the dead of night. As days turned into weeks, the stories grew more terrifying. Livestock started to disappear, only to be found days later, mutilated beyond recognition. Claw marks adorned the barn doors, and the chilling sound of tapping echoed in the ears of the terrified farmers. One night, a young woman named Claire heard the soft rhythmic tapping on her window. Frozen in fear, she peered through the curtains, only to see a pair of glowing eyes staring back at her. The creature's long fingers slid down the glass pane, leaving a trail of condensation in their wake. Terrified, Claire hid under her covers, praying for dawn. The next morning, she told her family about the encounter, but they dismissed it as a mere nightmare. But that very night, her younger brother Tom disappeared from his room. The only trace of him was his open window and the long, slender handprints on the sill. The town was in an uproar. Search parties were formed, and the woods were combed, but Tom was nowhere to be found. Days turned into weeks, and hope began to wane. The creature's nocturnal visits became more frequent and more daring. It no longer limited itself to tapping on windows. Now, it tried to enter homes. One evening, as the sun set and darkness enveloped the town, the local innkeeper heard a commotion from his storeroom. Rushing in, he found the creature hunched over a barrel, its long fingers delving into the pickled goods. The innkeeper, in a fit of rage and fear, lunged at the creature with a knife, but it was too fast. With a swift movement of its elongated fingers, it slashed the innkeeper's throat, leaving him to choke on his own blood. The town was paralyzed with fear. Doors were bolted, windows were boarded up, and no one dared venture out after sunset. But the creature's reign of terror was far from over. Every night another person would disappear, only to be found days later in a gruesome state. Desperate, the townsfolk sought the help of a renowned hunter named Edgar. He was known for tracking down and killing the most elusive of beasts. Edgar arrived in town, armed with an array of weapons and a determination to end the creature's reign. For days, Edgar stalked the woods, setting up traps and waiting for the creature to reveal itself. One night, as a thick fog enveloped the forest, Edgar heard the familiar tapping sound. Following it, he came face to face with the creature. Its long fingers glistened in the moonlight, and its eyes bored into Edgar's soul. A fierce battle ensued. Edgar managed to injure the creature, but not before it slashed him with its razor-sharp fingers. As Edgar lay bleeding, the creature loomed over him, its fingers reaching for his throat. But with one last ounce of strength, Edgar plunged his knife into the creature's heart, killing it. The town rejoiced at the news of the creature's death, and Edgar was hailed as a hero, but the celebrations were short-lived. The very next night, the tapping resumed, only this time, it was louder and more frantic. Edgar's body was found the next morning, mutilated beyond recognition. The creature he had killed was not alone. There were more of them, drawn to the town by the scent of fear. The town was abandoned soon after, its inhabitants fleeing for their lives. The once thriving community was now a ghost town, a grim reminder of the horrors that lurked in the woods. Years had passed since the once thriving town was abandoned. Nature began reclaiming its territory, with vines and moss covering the once sturdy walls of the houses. But as the town faded from memory, a group of curious teenagers decided to venture into the forgotten place, having heard the chilling legends. Julian, Anna, Mark, and Lee had always been thrill seekers. The story of the long-fingered creatures was too enticing to ignore. They packed their bags and began their journey into the heart of the forest, armed with flashlights, cameras, and a naive sense of invincibility. As they approached the town, the air grew colder and the oppressive silence enveloped them. The ruins of the town stood as a stark reminder of its past. Julian, always the brave one, led the group, with his camera ready to capture any sign of the mythical creatures. The group decided to set up camp in the town's old inn. As night fell, they gathered around a campfire, recounting the tales they had heard. Anna, the most superstitious of the group, felt uneasy. She kept glancing at the windows, half expecting to see long fingers tapping against the glass. Hours passed, and the group's fear turned into laughter as they joked about the legends. But their mirth was short-lived. Lee, who had gone to fetch more firewood, screamed from the edge of the woods. The group rushed to her side, only to find her staring at a grotesque sight. A circle of animal carcasses, each mutilated, with long finger marks gorged into their flesh. Panic set in. The legends were true. The creatures were still lurking in the shadows of the abandoned town. Mark, trying to remain rational, suggested they lead at first light, but the creatures had other plans. As the night deepened, the familiar tapping echoed through the inn. The creatures were there, watching, waiting. The group barricaded themselves in one of the rooms, but the tapping grew louder, more insistent. Then a voice, soft and raspy, whispered from the darkness, "You shouldn't have come here." The night was a blur of terror. The creatures toyed with the group, tapping on the windows, scratching at the doors, and whispering threats from the shadows. Anna, driven to the brink of madness, opened the door hoping to confront the creatures and end the torment, but she was met with a horrifying sight. Dozens of long-fingered creatures, eyes glowing with hatred. The creatures lunged, and a fierce struggle ensued. Julian and Mark managed to fend off a few with makeshift weapons, but the creatures were relentless. By dawn, only Lee remained, hidden in the attic, listening to the haunting whispers below. She waited, praying for a miracle. As the sun's first rays pierced the horizon, the creatures retreated, leaving behind a town stained with fresh horrors. Lee, traumatized but alive, made her way out of the town, vowing never to return. But the legend of the long-fingered creatures grew. Every few years, another group of curious souls would venture into the town, and the circle of terror would begin anew. The creatures, it seemed, were bound to the town, guardians of its dark secrets, ensuring that no one ever truly forgot the horrors that lurked within. Thank you for listening to The Tapping of the Long Fingers. If you enjoyed this story, please leave a like. And if you enjoy hearing stories from me, please subscribe and become a resident of Hill Street and let me know how I'm doing in the comments. And I hope all of you have a fantastic night.